Prawn here with some tips and tricks on how to survive and fight against brigands and bandits, especially if you're playing solo and you haven't got very many villagers to help you out in a little army, or friends when playing co-op. You might find that you're dying a lot to the brigands and bandits, especially early on in the game. So I've got some tips to help you survive and to win fights more easily and to get the upper hand against these guys. The first thing you'll probably experience, whether you're on your own or with some of your villagers, is that you'll end up fighting a lot of bandits and a lot of brigands. Now, early on in the game, these can be pretty punishing fights, and you might find you end up getting killed a lot really quickly. Obviously, you can just reload the last save, and autosave is pretty good on this game, so you can pretty much get back into the fight straight away. But another thing you can do is if you go into the gameplay settings, you can actually turn down the frequency and the strength of both the raids on your village and the brigand attacks, which come in later on in the game as well. You can set them to easy and low frequency, which will make your life a little bit easier as prepared for battle and basically trying to recruit more people to your village and other things. Another thing I'd recommend is for combat purposes, I'd get a bow as soon as you can, research it and craft a lot of arrows. The archery is key in this game because what you can do is if you know there's a bandit camp nearby, you can aggro them by firing an arrow from quite a distance away, then they'll all come for you. And then you can pick off a great deal of the bandits as they make their way towards you because they basically run in a straight line. Now, you'll often find that you're on your own or you only have a couple of people to help you, especially early in the game. If you're playing solo or co-op, or maybe you're just trying to use villagers, you'll find you're fighting a lot of bandits and you're probably dying a lot. So the bow can really help because you can basically pick enemies off or at least thin the herd or maybe reduce their health before they get near to you. There are other things you can do which are a little bit cheesy, but I find, for example, jumping over a wall thoroughly confuses the AI and they don't know what to do. So if they're all chasing you, if you've got enough stamina to get over a wall, this can help then increase the gap between you and them again, and then you can once again start headshotting them and reducing their numbers, which will make your life a little bit easier because you're more likely to survive. When your stamina is running low and you're surrounded by baddies, that's when you're going to die the most. So using a bow can make a big difference. Simple arrows and a simple bow aren't that great to start with, but if in doubt and if you're struggling too much, you can always just run away. If you've lured bandits away from a camp, you can often just keep running and eventually they get bored and they'll go and return to their camp. So as long as you can manage it, you can just keep going and just keep running off if you're losing a fight or if you haven't got much health. As you can see here, I haven't got much health, I haven't eaten any food, I've got barely any stamina, and I've got a bunch of bots chasing me. I'm in real danger, so I just decided to run away, and then eventually they get bored and they head back home. So that's definitely beneficial though. The other thing is basically cheesing the system entirely by getting on top of buildings or high places where enemies can't climb. Now later on in the game you have to fight brigands, which are higher level baddies with better equipment, so getting on a roof and shooting them in the top of the head makes your life a lot easier because they can't attack you unless they happen to have archers as well. They will take multiple arrows, as you can see. I was shooting this one about 5 times in the head before he died, and you can see if I was on the ground I would get destroyed by them, and you'll soon find that you will. So getting on top of a roof before fighting them can really help. It might seem a bit cheesy, but any sort of point that you can get to where you can jump up higher and get out of the way and they can't climb on that area, then this will save your life, and it has done multiple occasions. Now if you're trying to clear out brigands from a village which is being held hostage by them, then this trick can really help because it's very difficult to fight the brigands, especially early on in the game. Another thing you can do is if you're out in the world, you can watch out for rocks. Some of the taller rocks make it difficult for the bandits and brigands to climb on. So if you can find the right angle, you can jump on it, as you can see my friend doing here. Once he's jumped on top of there, the enemies then can't get him anymore, and he's completely invincible basically from them. The downside, of course, is that you do need a lot of arrows. You need to make sure you've got enough arrows here, because if you run out of arrows, you're going to have to go and fight hand to hand, because the chances are they won't get bored and wander off from here because you're not putting enough distance between you and them. So you will probably end up losing, and you can't really strike them from the rocks either. So we tried this because one of the things to bear in mind is if you're using archery and not increasing your strength stats, and the strength stat can make a big difference to how much damage you're doing to the enemy when you're fighting them, because that actually helps in that attribute, and you need to be using a melee weapon, getting in close and actually hitting them with that weapon to increase your strength stat. You can also get books, as I'll show you, that you can read, and that'll increase your strength and other stats so that you can then improve your character abilities and get better at fighting over time. So the bow is a key part of your arsenal, and you can indeed improve in the future with bronze arrows, and if you're lucky you might find some bronze arrows in the world that you can use. And you can also do other clever things like getting other things involved in the fight. So if you're lucky, you can pull a bandit through an area with wolves in it, for example, and the wolves will then aggro onto the bandits. I've also done this trick by pulling a group of bandits into an area where brigands were, and those two groups are actually enemies as well, so they'll end up fighting each other. Now, you don't get any of the loot out of this or any points for doing so, but if you found that there's an area where there are some enemies which are proving you a problem, you can basically get enemies to fight each other, kill each other off, and then you've freed up that space so you're no longer in danger when you pass through there, which is helpful, obviously. And you can just finish off the victor, and then you can carry on about your business. This is especially useful if you're running low on gear or on health. You can obviously try and fight them hand-to-hand combat. I'd recommend using a shield for doing so, but you'll often find you're just surrounded, overpowered, and then killed. And this is where an army comes in handy.